Now, Abraham Lincoln was a great president, no question, but he was not a favorite here in New Jersey. This was a Democratic state at the time. The Democrats were the conservatives, the Republicans were the radicals. And Abraham Lincoln ran twice for presidency, once in 1860 and again in 1864, and he was defeated soundly both times in Hunterdon County. We were very lukewarm politically, from the secession issue, the slavery issue. And you have to remember that all through the country, the whole rest of the country hated the New England states, and there was a lot of enmity, but there was a huge connection with the Confederate states and New Jersey, much more so than most other northern states. There were 3 Confederate generals were born in New Jersey, 2 more are buried here, and a number of families had soldiers on both sides. People didn't get really involved in the war until it actually started, and then they enlisted in droves. Well, it started down in Washington, D.C. Federals decided how many people they needed. Quotas were assigned each state according to the population of the state, and then the state would further break down their portion of the quota, say 2,000 men, to scatter them amongst the different counties, and each county had to come up with a number of men according to the population of the county. New Jersey had the very first fully armed and equipped brigade at the beginning of the war to reach Washington, D.C. There had been thousands of other men, but they came with no uniforms, they came with no weapons, with no nothing. In the summer of 1862, the Federals called on 16,000 men just from New Jersey alone, and 5 sections in the northwestern part of the county were set aside as a district, and they picked one town as a rendezvous point, and that was Flemington because of the access to the railroad to Lambertville. 4 regiments formed there. Now, they weren't all from Hunterdon, they were from 4 or 5 counties. They didn't get much training. In the first 2 years of the war, they would go to Trenton. There were a couple camps there. Basically, training was marching. Many troops went to war having never fired a musket. The basic weapon was just either a flintlock musket at the very beginning, and they were used right up through the end of the Civil War as muskets of the active militia here in Hunterdon County. Later on during the war, a number of these were converted to percussion. The 12th New Jersey had them at Gettysburg, and they took the brunt of Pickett's charge on the 3rd day at Gettysburg. And they had these smoothbore muskets, and they took apart their rounds and threw away the large balls and reloaded with nothing but buckshot. And they literally blew away. No rebel got within 50 feet of them. Only 2 or 3 states had more troops at Gettysburg than New Jersey, which is remarkable because we were a very small state. Our population was only 690-some thousand during the Civil War, as opposed to the millions in a number of other states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and so on. They marched 36 miles in 15 hours to get to Gettysburg, and when they got there, it had been 100-degree heat. A number had dropped out along the way from heat stroke. But while there were a large number of Jersey troops at Gettysburg, a good number of them, those in the 1st New Jersey Brigade, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 15th regiments, didn't fight because they had got there late on the 2nd day. They basically formed in reserve and lost only a few people as casualties. But other regiments, the 2nd New Jersey Brigade, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th New Jersey, suffered very heavy loss. They were in Sickles' 3rd Corps, and they were pushed out to meet Longstreet's attack the afternoon of the 2nd day. Sickles had pushed ahead of the rest of the Union line because he thought it was an advantageous position, and they got cemented by Longstreet's men who hit them from 2 directions. If you go by the numbers, we should have probably sent about 3,100 men, and that included the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. I've been able to find from the muster rolls in Trenton at the archives and in other records, a total of about 2,700 Hunterdon men. So I'm still missing 300. The muster rolls are not complete. There were no dog tags. Sometimes the soldiers would pin a piece of paper on their chest Others carried their Bibles, carried their diaries on them. Please write home to my father in Griggstown, New Jersey, if I am killed or wounded, if you please, things of that nature. It was their fear, and probably 30% of the soldiers were never identified in the Civil War. There were advertisements in local newspapers for years after the war, and Clara Barton figured prominently in that also, trying to find what happened to some of the soldiers who were missing in action. And a large number were missing in action because they weren't never identified, and the bodies were just buried somewhere. It took a long time to rebuild. It took a long time to get over it. And they just wanted to forget it all. They thought they'd done enough, and they had. Just about as many Americans died in the Civil War as in all our other wars combined. But in the end, it put us on the path to world power, starting from, say, World War I on to World War II. I think you just have to appreciate what a wonderful country we have and a system. It's far from perfect, of course, but I think we have to know the sacrifices those men made. You know, they're not just figures out of a history book. They're people.